business now, and
yeah.
So I suppose I got to a point as an entrepreneur, which I think you do, when things stop being a bit fun, and you feel as though you're stuck in a routine again, and it's not where you want to be necessarily as an entrepreneur. So I think it's important at that point that you take time out and you reflect and decide what you want to do. And I really sort of did that towards the end, probably midpoint last year through the end of last year. And I felt it was important at that time. I could have maintained the consultancy business and probably kept nice income going, but it needed to be more for that for me. In terms of I'm looking for an exit at some point.
Yes.
My age.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for that exit, and consultancy is a difficult one because there is still a lot of faith put around myself in that. And there's still clients who would ask for myself to deliver, and that would keep you in that on that mouse run.
Yeah, of course.
So you can't, you find it difficult to get off.
Spread your wings.
So when I sat down and looked at it, and I looked, as important to that was what people did I have around us and who did I want to work with as well. It was this bigger question. Because I think one of the things in this country is we almost put people to the wayside too early when they've got a lot to give. So, one of the things I decided was that everybody was going to be grey or bald, and just like myself, I suppose. And in that, my strategy in the consultancy has always been that they need to be there, and they've done it. And that was a big part of what we do. And I just felt, right, I'm going to keep to that thing first. But then we also needed to blend that with some of the younger people coming through and get some of the dynamism and the energy to support that. I knew I had a very good sales and marketing girl on board, so I didn't feel I need to change that side of it. But in terms of the product development, in terms of the structure of the business to allow to commercialise the product development, and also to exploit some of the opportunities that come our way, I decided, well, we'd split the business probably into four areas. So yes, we maintain the consultancy area, and but that'll be very much high value strategic consultants. So yes, we'll still deal with the large companies we deal with, but from the small to medium company size, we've been delivering what's been called the Manufacturing Growth Programme with the North East Lab, and that's given us a lot of information and allowed us into a position where we see lots of small and medium sized companies, a number of which are high growth, scale up companies, which is on trend now. And I've been fortunate enough to be around a few of these. And I started thinking of, well, what do we look for in them? And really, as long as their strategies are aligned to what ours is, in terms of at some point there needs to be an exit. So we got talking to a number of companies, and we're still in the throes of putting in relationships with these companies, and having probably shares in a number of companies. So we've got that as part of our consultancy portfolio as well. So there's a long-term strategy there in terms of us actually growing companies with the owners, and also around the support that we continue to give to companies.
In the same way that we had the pleasure of Amy Fettus this morning.
Yeah. From Amy, and that's a really interesting stage, and I think certainly, I think the number one thing I've learned is you buy into the people first. And I think with the challenges Amy's gone through, I think, and stuck at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a huge thing for me.
Knocked down, gets back up.
That's a huge thing for me to find, and I feel as though the expertise and knowledge that we can bring and other people we can bring to the table around that can only help the business moving forward. So that's sort of what we're looking to do. The other side of that was, with doing the Manufacturing Growth Programme, that gave us a foothold in terms of funded programmes that are around, and it is a different market for us to probably what we've done previously, and it's not the same margin, certainly not as what you get doing the commercial work, but in order to provide a funnel for these sorts of high growth companies and things like that, I felt, you know what, we still should be doing the funded programs. But there's different models and different ways of working that, so I just felt it was important that we almost had that as a separate entity. So that's really separated off into what's going to be our year growth, and we've already got that business set up. It's now just a matter of really starting to commercialise that, and we'll probably launch that in September. The other part that we've learned is that, you know, the sales and marketing knowledge out there in the marketplace is not great. Overall, there's a lot of sectors that don't necessarily engage still in social media, and is it the right forum? You know, for them, they don't see it if it's not going to bring them a customer. Whereas actually for profile raising and positioning,
I'm really surprised at that.
Really important. And a lot of these companies are really poor at it.
Really? Even well-established companies?
Yep. You know, I won't give
not
any
to name names.
No, not name names, but you know, we've had companies that have been established. You know, there's one company we've worked with recently who, you know, a sizable company. You know, you're talking somewhere near 50 million, and they had limited access to any sort of marketing or social media. They've been part of certain supply chains, and as long as the supply chains work, everything's fine. And there's a lot of companies who fit that.
You're really missing the trick though nowadays.
You need the profile. Yeah. So I felt that there's a big gap there, even though there's lots of marketing agencies around. I feel that a lot of them are more website developers, not really taking the value proposition and strategic position in that business for growth or whatever, or whatever the reason for positioning is. So I felt there's something there that we could launch as well. So that's launching in September.
So that's the third one, is that right? Yeah.
So sorry, that's under IA Growth.
Right, okay.
The third one is going to be IA Technologies. So that's come about. We've developed a lot of things in the consultancy over a number of years. That the idea has always been mine for the last 18 months, 2 years, to exploit that. So it was very important that to me, that part of the strategy had to be about separating off this technology section to exploit their models. We've also then been fortunate enough to have various introductions to people around the tech side of things, which allows us to develop joint ventures and partnerships to exploit what we've got, but also for us to be a key business development arm to what they're doing. Because developers tend not to be the best either applications designers, you know, of how an application will fit to a certain market. So we were able to do that side of it for them. We also are getting asked more and more to support organisations in implementation of their internal technology systems, ERPs, that type of thing, because of our process knowledge. So we're able to do that as well. So IA Technologies will probably come slightly behind that, but we're still looking at probably January 2018, so we launch that.
How many people are you going to have, Graham, in terms of staff?
We're going to have a few in the end. I think what we've looked at initially is sort of phase one, and phase one, I brought on another director recently into improved architecture, and we've had to make some changes at the board level, you know, as well, with director going out also. Need to recruit probably another director, you know, FD, something like that, to move that on. We then have the individual areas, and you know, although we may have one person already on board for them areas, probably we're looking at 3 new leaders for those areas. So that's probably phase one. And then underneath that you've got admin staff, and you've got other things that you need to bring on as well to support that. So that's the starting point, I suppose, for us. That's the plan we've got in currently. The final part of the jigsaw was, and it wasn't necessarily anything planned, but again, when I was in this reflective mode last year, one of the ideas I came up with was how I was spending my time personally, and you know, whether what I felt I was given back as I could, at the best level I could.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I've always given back to a degree, but it was important that I felt as though that was being valued and was being spent the right way. So I decided to, I came with this idea called 2020 Vision. And really what that was to begin with was, I'm going to take senior leaders who are already in kids' charities, because my purpose has always been about raising the ambition of children.
Yes.
And young adults, and you know, and for me it was important. There's lots of charities out there, but I don't think they probably have the right support to allow them to really grow. So for me it was also this case of, well, you know, how do I make them grow, and how can I use what I know to help them grow, without really knowing the charity sector hugely.
Well, the last time you were in March, you were just sort of
we just started that.
It, weren't you?
Yeah, we just launched it. So we launched that actually. We put out some marketing in December last year. We were looking for 5 people for the first year. So the idea was, we're going to take 5 people each of the next 4 years through to the end of 2020. So 20 people in total who are senior leaders of charities, and each of those need to impact at least 20 extra kids a year within their charities. So we're accumulating, you know, the cumulative effect is into thousands of kids. That was my idea. I put that out there, hoping to get 5 people to coach free for the next 12 months, and we ended up with 40 odd people.
Really?
You know, 45 applicants. So that became a really hard decision, but going through that, we selected them and we started the coaching with them in January.
All right.
So that's still moving on. We're about to have a peer-to-peer day when we get them all together, and I've got various speakers coming in to speak to them, as well as myself, and some of the stories that's already coming out of this are absolutely phenomenal. And there's going to be, probably after that peer-to-peer day, there'll be quite a large marketing supplement coming out around what we're doing with that. But that's almost the 4th strand in terms of our year charity, is really built around this 2020 vision.
Because you have there's like a little section on your website, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a little section on that already, but you know, because again we need to change some of the text on there currently, but just to turn around, so we're now inviting people for next year.
Right.
You know, to apply for that, and we're also going back to the others who weren't successful to say, well, where are you at now, and do you wish to reapply? And I think now with the word of mouth as well that's gone round, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that, because that's purely for North East charities currently. But we also, I've had some interesting conversations around this on how it might be scaled both nationally and globally in terms of this. So
that'll keep you busy.
So it was never my intent to set up a separate charity, but I'm sort of being pushed down into a structure where we're probably going to have to set it as a CIO or something, you know, in order to really move that where people are saying it needs to go.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting one. It's exciting, but I'm going to end up at a place where I didn't want to be. I didn't necessarily want to start a new charity because I felt there was plenty of charities out there, which is why I wanted to leave each others. But we sort of get back to that point. So yes, there's a lot of change, but I'm back excited again, and I think that's the key. If I'm excited, then you know, I think people, when you've got that excitement, that passion for something you're doing, then
absolutely.
You know, it doesn't matter what comes in your way, you'll just knock it down and you'll drive through it, and you know, and I think that's really the mindset of an entrepreneur.
I think sort of the kids this morning were saying that about Amy. You can just tell that she's so passionate about what she's doing, really.
And I think that's why, you know, I suppose when I look at businesses, the first thing I look at is probably the person at the top. You know, and you know, would I want them in my corner if I was, you know, as well? You know, because that's probably what people who work for them think. You know, have they got my back? You know, will they be supportive if I go through a difficult time? Because why work for them if they won't? You know, and I think it's important that I say that type of thing from these entrepreneurs. I think that's a base thing to work with them. But then you don't want them you know, you want them to be very confident, but you don't want them to be egotistical.
Yes, humility.
You know, that there has to be an area of humility where people can say, you know what, I made a mistake, or you know what, maybe I didn't do this in the right approach, or you know. And what you find with most of them, if they are that driven, if they do have that purpose and that passion for it, then they're really driven. And what you'll find is that generally they don't have time to almost create an ego.
Yeah.
You know, within that cycle that they're going through of growing a business. It's only when other people, when they get to a point and people say, well, you know, do this award, or you know, do this award, or you know, how wonderful you've been, or there's loads of press about you, or that tends to bring out the monster in people. But you know, that's in a lot of cases. I'm looking at people to say where, you know, are they at that point, because it's difficult to work with them if they're at that point actually. Or do they still have a level of humility? Are they willing to accept the feedback? And that then often means a really positive conversation. So I think that's the key.
So some of those people, are they too sort of egotistical?
Oh, I've met plenty of them over the year. But I think it's difficult though, because it's like, you know, people look at certain people and just by their mannerisms, people think, oh well, they're egotistical.
Draw conclusions.
And it may not be. It may be. You know, some people are on that knife edge. You know, as I say, what is it? There's a knife edge between being highly intelligent and insanity, almost. You know, is that some of the best ideas come off this knife edge?
Yes, of course.
So for entrepreneurs, can be on that knife edge, and
you don't want to stifle that either.
Absolutely not. You know, so I would be blind if I didn't look at that and say, well, you know, is this just purely, you know, the fact that actually they've come up with a fabulous idea, you know, and it's running away, and you know everything's looking wonderful, and they're just so positive and so confident in the moment. But I think that's the art. I think Amy touched on it this morning. But you know, when things are really bad, you can't get yourself really down as an entrepreneur. When things are really good, you can't get yourself really up because there's a fall just around the corner.
Yeah. Like the economic cycle.
So absolutely. Yeah. So you know, I think most people that have been an entrepreneur for a number of years realise that you can't get yourself too overexcited or too down
hard times,
when things get difficult. You know, I met a lot of people after, you know, the hits, whether in the recession or Brexit, and sort of what I found with them was that there was this, in some cases there was like, you know what, okay, it's just another blip. You know, and they were the guys that really ended up, well, probably investing through that period actually. You know, probably making some distressed purchases and growing their business, and you know, and actually they're the guys now who are flying, you know. And then there was other people who thought, oh look what's happening. You know, I've had it took all away from us. And you know, you would have to try and pick them up, and you know, even if that's not the owner, if that's somebody on the board or part of the senior team who's given that type of thing, that has to be managed in the organisation. And it's so easy for that to fester, you know, especially with the media we've got. So it's so easy for that to fester. And I think so for the guys at the top, or for the senior people in organisations, it's very important that you just remain even keeled. You know, but
outwardly at least.
And always remember, especially as an entrepreneur, you know, things are in your control. You know, the fact is, when Brexit came along, if we weren't prepared to change and to adapt to that, who would be in society? You know, it's, you know, entrepreneurs, that's what we do.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think, you know, what it's meant is it then takes you into, maybe you could have been in the comfort zone, and obviously it interrupts that.
Gives you a bit of a kick.
Gives you that kick, but I think it's important that we don't just get carried away either one way or the other. You know, and I think that's something you learn as the years go by. I don't think young entrepreneurs often don't have that, you know, which is great because they've got that energy, that passion, and almost what I'm looking for in some cases in some of these businesses is somebody who's probably, you know, doesn't fit the Graham Baldwin profile, bringing it back to the start, but is somebody that's got the energy, that's got that level of connectedness is a big word, you know, for the markets now, because having that level of connectedness to drive a business forward, you know, something else which is key. And, you know, one of the biggest things I think people coming out of school and uni and colleges and whatever, you know, I think the two key things is the passion for something and that level of connectedness with others. And I think if you've got that, you've got a chance. You know, everybody talks about cash, but cash actually comes a little bit further down.
Of course.
A little bit further down the ladder.
Right. Okay. Well, I think that's a great point on which to end on, to end on that inspirational note at the end there. Thank you, Graham.
No problem.
I was just saying to Graham earlier that the first video we did was November 2015 and now it's June 2017, so this is part 2, sort of finishing that off. So thanks very much
Thanks
for
very
coming in, Graham.
Thank you.